We're going to move on here. Topic 3, former UFC champ Conor McGregor was removed from the official UFC rankings for the first time in 8 years. In addition to him not competing in MMA for the past 19 months, as well as not being part of the USADA testing pool currently, where does this put the biggest UFC star? Give us your state of Conor's career address. Goes, the floor is yours.
Yeah, dude, this is a real difficult question because his standards and other fighters' standards are different, right? He's always been kind of bulletproof. And I'm not saying that he's not bulletproof. He's just a little less bulletproof now because no matter what, if you're Conor McGregor, you go out there and you fight, win or lose, even if you keep losing, you always had that one card you could pull out, right? The Nate Diaz card. That saves everything because nobody cares about records or nothing if that gets brought up. But we're kind of past that now. It's bye-bye Nate. I don't know if that fight can happen. And even if it did, guys, like, who really cares at this point? You know, like Nate Diaz looked completely different in his last fight. We don't know what Conor McGregor is going to look like. I don't know what this solves. If I'm Nate Diaz, I'm saying, look, we fought twice. A referee had to pull me off of you from killing you, and 3 judges had to tell you you won. So in my eyes, I'm kind of the winner here. I don't think we'll ever see that third fight. If we do, they're going to be really, really old by the time it happens. So he doesn't have that card no more, but he just still has fights. You know, he has the car accident with Michael Chandler waiting, right? People tune in for that. Dustin Poirier, maybe. I think we'll roll our eyes, but we'll all order it, right? We'll be there. Even a Masvidal fight would always be fun. He has avenues. He has ways of making money, but he's the longer and longer this gets delayed, the more and more important it is that he starts to win, right? I don't think we can stomach him being gone that far, that long, and then come back and not win. You have to win fights. He has avenues of making money, and I think that's the most important thing for him. Legacy-wise, I think he's kind of set already. But yeah, you know, we're going to see him back and we're going to tune in, but things are a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure. Get back in USADA as quick as possible. And I think that's what gets the wheels turning because we do the math from there, right? 6 months, unless there's an exemption. But at this point, the longer it goes, the more highlighted that exemption will be, the further it'll look worse on the UFC. But once we know the timeline, then we can match them up to the fighter. Or at least that's how I'm doing it. How about you, Nolan?
Yeah, I think, honestly, I'm not like hitting the panic button on Conor McGregor. I mean, he's out of the rankings, but we all know, what does that really mean? I mean, he was sitting at number 15 at lightweight. Like, the fact that he's, you know, not number 15 anymore, like, is it the biggest deal in the world? No. I think he's still got that star power. He's actually, in my opinion, more recently with this USADA testing pool whole saga and everything else that's been going on, I almost feel like that's been a more successful way of keeping him relevant than him trying to trash talk online. So I think that controversy, people doubting him, people questioning him, that's the sort of stuff that went into him being a star in the first place. And sure, he'll never, I think he's peaked in terms of his stardom. I don't know if we're going to see him extend beyond what he did on that initial rise in the Mayweather fight. But at the same time, if he comes back and he fights in October, whatever, August, whatever, he spends his 6 months, he's coming back late summer, early fall, people are going to tune in. And as long as they give him a matchup of someone that's maybe not, you know, not Hamzat or something, that's just terrible style matchup, a guy that's way theoretically above him in the skill department, like give him a Masvidal, give him a Chandler, one of those guys you named right there. And I think that you'll see the numbers and we'll all remember that he is, the way you answered the question a little bit, or answered the question in the question, you said he's the biggest star. He still is. And I think we'll see that when he comes back.
Yeah, no doubt. And by far, he's the biggest star. And here, we got a comment here in our chat room. Richie Elger says he broke his leg. He won't cut weight anymore. He is done. He will get knocked out one more time at 170, and the circus will end with him. Times have changed. The game has passed him by, in his opinion. How about in your opinion, Fada?
Well, the cutting weight part is a good point because he keeps like kind of boasting about how, or he said he could be a fridge at middleweight and whatnot. So fact is he's probably coming back at 170, but it's what are Conor McGregor's goals is more the question because everyone is going to want to fight him from champions to big names. So he's not short of options for his comeback. I think it's more what he wants. Is he looking for big fights? I mean, Dos Anjos recently came out and said, you know, I'm not really chasing the title. I want big fights. I don't know if Conor is ready to say that because for him, he keeps looking back at the Dustin Poirier fight. He said, you know, I was boxing his bleeding head off or what he said. You know, in his mind, he's kind of hanging on to the good moments. Kind of reminds me a little bit of what Darren Till has recently been doing as well. He's like, I was doing well against Robert Whittaker. I had good moments against Derek Brunson, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time, it's the stylistic matchup that is going to be extremely important for his comeback fight. Now, Michael Chandler is saying, I'm willing to go up to 170. It doesn't even make sense for them to fight at 170. But the fact is, Chandler knows what kind of a fight or how big of a fight this would be for him, just in terms of notoriety and making money and all that stuff. So that's a good matchup for him. It's a fight that Chandler can win if he uses his IQ and just wrestles him. But we've all seen Michael Chandler just go out there. I mean, he did use his wrestling against Dustin Poirier, but he also has a tendency to stand and trade. There's Jorge Masvidal, like you guys mentioned. Obviously, Nate Diaz not being currently in the UFC, or we don't know what his status is. But the reality is it depends on the actual matchup. Like Nolan said, if you don't give him a grappler, a guy like Dos Anjos has been calling him out. But something tells me because of the kind of the disdain that Dos Anjos has for him, he is going to fight a high IQ fight, and he is going to want to stifle him against the cage. And he's not even going to care if hundreds and thousands of people are booing while he does that, just so he could beat Conor McGregor. So I think the idea is the type of matchup. He's not short of opponents. He's going to headline a pay-per-view. He's going to still make a ton of money. But I think it's what are Conor McGregor's goals? And I think that question is going to be answered in his comeback fight, depending on who he fights in the outcome.
I'm starting to think we're going to see McGregor and Diaz in the slap league before we see him in MMA. I really wanted to see him at Allegiant, but I think I'm starting to warm up to Chandler and Conor. So
yeah,
I don't know.
but what happens though? What if Chandler cleans his clock? Are you just as excited for the next fight the way you were maybe a couple years ago, or does that start to go away? Like, he's got to win, right?
Well, him and Diaz. Okay, I'll be excited about Conor and Nate for sure, no matter what. But the older they're starting to get, the less pumped up I'm starting to get. Like about 3 years ago, I was like, man, I want this living room packed, with people, barbecue and drinks and everything. And now I could just sit at home and watch it, still excited, but it's just not like it's not the crazy thing that I thought it was going to be. It's losing its luster. Some of it had to do with the way Nate looked against Tony. Some of it is just, guys, this fight was 2016. In 2023, it'll be 7 years. Remember Sam Stout and who did he fight? Spencer Fisher. And they had two great ones. We're like, we got to see the third one. They finally did it like a decade later. And we're like, yeah, all right. Well, you kind of blew it. But further to that, I'm really just disappointed with all the good money that these fighters can get paid later in their career. But something about the Diaz brothers, McGregor, Jones, that from 30 to 35, when you probably can still say, hey, I'm at my physical best, but I got this now, and all that experience, it's just gone by the wayside. And now they're starting to get north of 35, closer to 40. Guess who hasn't done that? Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, Lionel Messi. They've been there every year. One way or another, they figured it out. Even Floyd Mayweather, got to give him credit. Canelo's probably around 30 right now. Yeah, I don't think he's going to miss, these big paychecks. They've just, oh, man, I think they've misplayed their hands. But that's a whole other topic. Look at this nut. Frankie in the chat says, Alex Pereira versus Conor McGregor. Make the fight. Oh, my God, he's trying to get him killed. I better change the subject, man, because imagine if they listen to what's there. That won't work out.
Well, yeah, I want to touch on the next comment that actually came up. Somebody saying he'll never be a has-been. Dude, change the game forever. Of course, that's a good point. I think we're kind of writing McGregor off. He's coming off of a brutal injury, but he still performed at a high level in those losses. I know he hasn't won since 2016, but it's not like he's getting dominated and looks like, retire. We're not calling retire right now. I think it's just tough to come back from such an injury, and we're interested to see what he's going to be like. But I still think the Conor McGregor we saw, even though he didn't get his hand raised against Dustin Poirier, he still looked good. And Dustin Poirier is the guy who's pretty much beaten everybody except Charles Oliveira and Khabib in his past, 11 fights? So you're not losing to a chump. Now, I do agree with Goes that whoever he fights, if he loses, it's going to be a bit of an issue because now we don't know where he's going to go. But it goes back to the point I was trying to make, like, what does Conor McGregor want to do? Is he still trying to become world champion, or does he want just big fights? But I guess that answer will come depending on how he does. And that's why I think a Michael Chandler is perfect, because that will put you sort of in a title picture. Yeah. And you bet that Islam Makhachev, if he's still champion, is going to be like, yeah, give me Conor McGregor based off of the rivalry and stuff. Even if he just has one win over Chandler and it's his first win since 2016, Islam will be like, yeah, give me that guy, easy money. And we'll have Conor McGregor fighting for a title. So it depends.
I like what Farah said. I think right now it's still, what does Conor McGregor want to do? But if he loses again, I think it starts to change to, what does the UFC want to do?
Yeah, I'm still trying to digest Nigel Lee, aka Money Bank Locks. He says he'll never be a has-been. That's just nonsense. Man, okay, look, I know spilling it over into other sports sometimes isn't what people want to hear, but isn't Cristiano Ronaldo slowly turning into a has-been just in the last 6 months? And this comes from a hardcore Manchester United fan. Last year he made 24 goals for us. This year he couldn't even get on the pitch. In Portugal, he was kind of sat for his last few games. It can happen. I've seen it in the NBA as well. Players can turn into has-beens. This guy will always sell, but will he always sell like he did at one time? Will he come out second? Will he be in the red corner? Those days might be over there. He might be a has-been for his championship days. Can he just go out there? Can we just put him out there to fight? Yeah, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Nolan?
I mean, every MMA career ends sad, right? Like, there's very few that don't. I mean, Habib's like the white whale when it comes to that. Like, we've seen everyone get pummeled. We've seen pretty much. I mean, there's some exceptions. Like GSP's walked away fairly unscathed, but we've seen him lose. We've seen him get finished at times. So, yeah, I mean, to me, I don't know if he'll ever be the B-side. I just think his name is, again, he's such an anomaly when it comes to this sport. But when you were talking earlier about the Diaz fight, you're hitting on the head. Like, I'll always be excited about that, but that's not really necessarily saying a ton, considering I was like a little bit excited for the Tito versus Chuck 3 fight. Like, that's kind of what's the nightmare I'm having. The nightmare vision is like is 2030, and it's Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy present Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz 3. Like, to me, I think that might be like the limit that I have, but anything before that, I'll still get excited for.
Yeah, man, these guys need to hurry. They're taking a page out of Tom Cruise's Top Gun to Top Gun Maverick. The time in between, by the time they do part 3 or whatever.